there's a lot of pace in the game, the way the All Blacks are playing right now. I looked at the stats for passes per kick under this Rennie team. 13 passes per kick compared to Razor's 2025 season of 8 passes per kick. So they're keeping the ball in hand a lot more. They're not going to the air as much either. The kicks are a lot more like delicate and intricate. Like you're seeing Damian McKenzie putting in these short little grubbers, little cross kicks. Geordie Barrett keep kicking over the top. And I think you'll see a lot more of that as just to hold that Springbok rush defence to try and keep them honest. Putting your Springbok coaching hat on, though, I think they'll go hard at the breakdown. They know that, like, if the All Blacks are getting these, like, 1 to 2 second rucks, they're going to be very, very hard to stop. Like, even for a team as big and as physical as the Springboks, you can't give these guys quick ball. And I'm wondering if that's going to play into their selection. They've got a few jackalers in the team, obviously, with Marx. Jasper Wiese is outstanding over the ball. But we had a new guy, Paul de Villiers, come into the Springbok team in the Nations Championship. Got called up on the day of the England game where Siya Kolisi was out injured. But he ended up playing, I think, all of the minutes in that Nations Championship and was absolutely outstanding. Man of the match against Wales. He's a bit more of a Heinrich Brousseau kind of mould player. Not necessarily like a big line-out option, but absolutely lethal at the breakdown. And I wonder if Rassie is going to turn the chapter on this current team and potentially pick him ahead of Kolisi. Now, the counter argument could be that, you know, they value Kolisi's leadership. He's been the hallmark of this era of Springbok rugby. But on the contrary, he doesn't necessarily need to be on the field to bring that leadership. And if de Villiers is that good over the ball, this is the series to unleash him, man. Like they're going to want to slow down that All Blacks possession as much as possible.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think you summarised that incredibly well. I think they're at a point where Siya Kolisi, he has a massive influence around the group, and his leadership is without question. But they've got a guy in Paul de Villiers who is just shooting the lights out at the moment, and it probably, rather than say what I think they should do, it'll tell us a lot of where the South African psyche is at around their selection policies at the moment, because I know New Zealand and a number of teams in the past have probably sold a few players short on caps by holding on to somebody else who they felt had delivered so much for them in the past, but maybe didn't acknowledge that there is a window of time where things have to move to the future. And I know that Kolisi will be within the squad in the lead up to the World Cup, but I'd be paying the guy who's right here, right now, in form. And if I was the All Blacks, I would probably fear de Villiers more than I do Kolisi on the field right now. South Africans will hate me for saying that, but yeah, I'm just going to call it how I see it. For me, I'd be picking de Villiers if I was the Springbok coach.
Yeah, I'd be on the same page about that as well. And it's a hallmark of their depth that they, like you said it in one of your videos recently, I think, there is no A, B, C, D team anymore with, I think, the top 4, top 5 nations in the world. They've got so many options that they just slot into the starting lineup, whether they're better or not, and they're functioning as a unit. There's a few other movers that could be there for the taking in this series. I think Cobus Wiese, Jasper's brother, had an outstanding couple games there against Scotland and Wales. I think I wouldn't be surprised to see him on the bench ahead of the likes of Lou de Jager as an impact player, because he can cover number 8 like his brother as well. I would also say there are a couple of positions where they're potentially vulnerable too. I think they're one injury away at hooker from a serious problem there. The gap between Malcolm Marx and the next guy, I know they've got Johan Grobler, by no means a bad player or anything, but you're talking about the World Player of the Year, a guy who's been playing deep into the last quarter of matches this last season. And obviously Bongi Mbonambi hasn't been selected in recent times. Whether or not he comes back into the reckoning closer to the World Cup, I suspect Rassie wants to look at a few guys to try and give them game time, but may end up bringing Mbonambi back into the fold closer to the tournament.
Yeah.
Another one, though, that they could be considered vulnerable is 13. Jesse Kriel played all the minutes in the Nations Championship. Their alternatives in recent years, they've done away with Lucanio Arm. I don't know why. He was a world-class player, absolutely outstanding, but they've done away with him. And Cannon Moody has been the alternative. Now, he's been a hyped-up player for the last few years, but I think he's mainly a test winger rather than a test centre. And I think if Kriel goes down, that maybe leaves them vulnerable in the 13 channel, especially as the leader of that blitz defence. You could argue that maybe a guy like Ethan Hooker could come in and fill that void, but he'd be more of a Dielende, Esterhausen kind of 12 or a winger than a 13. 13 is such a hard position to defend in. Like, do you see South Africa vulnerable in those positions yourself?
100%. Yeah, I think if I was to name 3 players that the Springboks would be very concerned if they went down, one would be Malcolm Marx, the second would be Jesse Kriel, and the third would be Damian Willemse. In fairness, I think at the moment, I would struggle to name a world-class 13 outside of Jesse Kriel. Somebody who's pure world-class. I think every top test team at the moment appears to have a world-class number 12, but not many teams have a world-class number 13, which kind of speaks to the difficulty and complexity of the position and kind of just how good Jesse Kriel is. He's an incredible defender. He's a great attacker, and his ability to communicate, general fitness level is phenomenal. I think any team would struggle to replace their 13, let alone the Springboks with Jesse Kriel. And Hooker, big problems if Malcolm Marx goes down. He's also had his fair share of injuries over time, and given that he's been playing in Japan recently, I think that's probably eased up his injury woes to a degree. But I'd also add Damian Willemse into that conversation around if the player was to go down, who would the Springboks be concerned with, because he has a freakish ability to play any position in the back line, and I think he could start in 4 different positions across 4 different weeks and be world class in all of them. So him going down, I think they're always going to have options, and they're lucky now that they've got that ability to not have necessarily an A, B or C team, because they've got a lot of players that are at equal caliber. They just have variations of strengths and weaknesses, and they're just lucky with guys like Kriel, Marx and Willemse that they're 3 of the most well-rounded players in world rugby. So you're always going to miss them if they go down.
And Damian Willemse, I watched a Stormers game down at Cape Town Stadium maybe 4 years ago. It's a local URC game, Stormers Lions, and Willemse was playing 12, and my God, this guy was like walking on water. He was by a country mile the best player on the field. He might be one of the most naturally gifted and talented players South Africa has produced in years. 2-time World Cup winner already as well at the age of 26, 27.
He's the youngest player to win 2 World Cups.
Yeah, it's incredible, man. You could see him winning potentially another one, maybe another 2 in his time.